Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm your host, Kate Burgess. I'm joined today by Korhan, and we are talking Istanbul, the city that spans two continents and has the history and culture to prove it. Korhan gives us an honest insight into travelling around Istanbul, tips for the traveller, and why the low season is truly the best time to visit. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Korhan. Welcome to Low Season Travel Insider Guides. It's great to have you. How are you today?
Thank you. Very good, and it's very nice to. It's nice to see you too.
Now, I know you currently live in Australia with your wonderful wife, Lisa, who we did our Sydney podcast on. But
Right.
when you were living in Istanbul, when you stepped outside of your home, what did you see, hear, and smell?
Well, it wasn't a long time before I moved in Sydney, so I still feel like I belong to Istanbul, right? And I just before this COVID, I used to just visit there very often. So I still feel like that's my hometown, even though I enjoy living in Sydney. That's true. But I remember Istanbul just walking out of my home, and this answer most possibly won't be a very positive thing. But what I hear, what I just smell, and what I see is a little different than what it is in Sydney. It's more like some car horns and some crowds around, and of course the smell is just that the busy city smell that you just feel that it's crowded, that it is just full of people, and then everyone is in a rush, working hard, and that's usually what you just see and hear when you just walk out of your house. But this is something nice. It's an interesting and a very different experience for, I bet, the travelers. Kind of a different feeling, I guess.
Absolutely. I love the honesty. When I ask that question, often people talk about the rolling views and the amazing
No.
sort of smells of food. But I love that, Istanbul is like that because it has that energy about it and you feel the
It
buzz and
is.
excitement of crowds. So that is an exciting thing. And yeah, exactly. It's a different kind of travel of that city exploration.
True. You just get out and then you see the people are just rushing around and everyone is busy with something, and you're like, okay, let's do it. I mean, yes, that energy. That's what I was just talking about. True.
Yeah, I've been to Istanbul a few years ago and remember it very, very fondly. And I really don't think two, 20-minute podcasts can truly do it justice. But
Right.
we're here today to tackle the task. So firstly, just for logistics, where exactly is Istanbul and what's the best way to get there?
It's actually pretty easy to get there. It's let's say only a couple of hours flight from most of the major European capitals. And a lot of people just think Turkey being in Middle East, but it's I think it's closer to Europe culturally and geographically. So let's say it's just somewhere between Middle East and Europe. And especially, for example, if you're just flying from anywhere around the world, US, Australia, Asia, getting a flight ticket in Istanbul will be one of the most affordable one and easy one, and there will be a lot of alternatives.
Many cities are now implementing a lot of sustainable travel options like the city hire bikes and free public transport in certain areas. What would you say is the best way to travel around Istanbul?
I think the best way to travel around Istanbul is really on food. You just gotta walk around, and about some this new bicycles and rechargeable vehicles around the world becoming quite popular. Yes, we have some scooters in Istanbul as well. You can just download the app, just quickly get on it, and just quickly just travel around the city. But for me, I don't use taxis, and I don't usually use the metros. because they are not very convenient to just visit the touristy areas. Tram is a great option. Of course, you can just use a tram, but if you like walking, I'm just thinking right now, and if you're staying in the Sultanahmet area, the most popular hotels area in Istanbul, the furthest place that you will visit will be only about half an hour, 40 minutes walking distance away from you. And this is not a boring, a straight 40 minutes walk. You will see some wonderful places, some little shops, and some nice hills and history along your way. So you shouldn't miss that. And I really think you should be walking wherever you go. Other than that, of course, when you're crossing the continents, that's something great about Istanbul. You will use the ferries. And, at the end of the day, when you've done enough walking, and when you don't have the energy left, you can always take the tram back to your hotel, which is a very convenient way. And it's pretty cheap too.
As you mentioned, Istanbul sits on that border of Europe and Asia and is a real reflection of the two civilizations meeting and combining across the Bosphorus River. And
Right.
this cross culture has obviously led to beautiful architecture, rich history, and cultural heritage galore. What are some of the key sites you would recommend to travelers that want to learn about the history of the European side and the Anatolian side?
So most of the people, the visitors in Istanbul, will be spending maybe 95% of their time in, the European side of the city. Most of the historic areas and the most important sites are all in the European side. And only over the last, let's say, 50, 60 years, or let's say 100 years, the Asian side of the city has expanded and just become a very, populated area. And I've been just guiding in Istanbul for a long time. But for example, so far, I've met only a couple of people among, thousands who were staying on the Asian side of the city, because it's a wonderful place. It's really lively, some great food and some nightlife as well. You can just walk around the streets, spend some time. But when it comes to visiting the highlights and the most historic parts of the city, yes, you need to stay on the European side. So we are just, talking about the Hagia Sophia, the um, um, the Blue Mosque, of course, the Grand Bazaar, the Spice Market, those are all on the European side of the city. And they will give you a great idea about how Istanbul was the cradle of the civilizations, not only the Turkish, but the Roman and also the Byzantine history.
Do you get a different feeling from each side? I know you mentioned obviously travelers stay 95% on the European side, but is
Right.
there a difference in the feel of the city? Is there a difference in the products that the shops are selling, or does it really feel like one big city molded together by the people?
It just feels like one big city. You can never tell the difference if you just find yourself on the European side or the Asian side. That's not where the difference starts. The difference is, of course, is all about the different suburbs, let's say. So there are some very outgoing, modern, and young suburbs on the European side where you can feel like, wow, this is such an amazing place. This is such a modern. I just feel like I am in a European capital. I mean, when you have a look around yourself. But there will be some suburbs that you will feel exactly the same on the Asian side as well. And it's the same. For example, you can get to some areas of Fatih, let's say, some local areas, and you'll be like, well, okay, this must be the Middle Eastern part of Istanbul, right? And pretty different than what I've seen yesterday. And yes, you can find exactly the same feeling on the Asian side of the city. So it's not about Asia or Europe. Everything will stay the same. But as you are traveling through the different suburbs, you feel like the culture, the customs, and people's habits are just changing quickly.
The historical sites often double up as architecture around the city. So, for our design lovers out there, what would you say are some of the top architectural sites that people should visit?
Right. Yes. I think we should first mention Hagia Sophia. That's not only one of the most important architectural site in Istanbul, but it must be in the whole world. It must be one of the most important buildings. So it was just 1,500 years old. It's just unbelievable. Imagine, and when it was just built almost about 1,500 years ago, it was just the world's biggest church ever, and it stayed just kept that title for about another 1,000 years. Eventually, when they just finished build something bigger somewhere in Europe. But yes, still an amazing place to visit. Walking inside, it was maybe people listening to us will remember it was converted into a mosque back again. It was a museum, and only a couple of years ago it is converted into a mosque, but still you can just understand and feel that history, a church history, the museum history, and the mosque history as well together. That's the most important one. And right across it there is the Blue Mosque, Sultan Ahmet Mosque, and that's a wonderful place. And because that was a competition really, when the mosque was built, the Blue Mosque was built, they always wanted to surpass the mosque, comparing with the Hagia Sophia. So there was this beautiful competition going on. So you will be like visiting those two places, and you will know that they are some of the two of the most amazing buildings in the whole world, really, not only in Istanbul.
Being quite a religious city and also visiting mosques, are there any tips that you would want to give travelers to make sure that they follow cultural customs at all? Anything that they should wear or say, or any like donations that need to be had, or tips for people that are trying to visit these places?
Yeah, well, Istanbul is a very like I was just telling you before. There are different neighborhoods, different suburbs where it can be more conservative, or it can be more relaxed. I mean, and more secular, let's say. And that's why I never tell people visiting Istanbul to wear something conservative. They should just wear whatever they want and however they are wearing back at home. But as they may end up in a mosque during the day, just having a headscarf and nice a light kind of a cloth to cover their legs will be just enough. And nowadays in Istanbul, most of the time, most of the popular mosques have already supplied with the clothing that you need to wear. So just a very simple headscarf is going to do the trick. You can just feel as comfortable as you want, and then just put something, put in your handbag a basic a headscarf, and you'll be okay. But other than that, while you're inside, it's just the same, rules as being in a church. Being respecting the others, praying in there, just not being too loud and laughing and making too many noises. So it's not about the mosques, but you should just feel like a common sense when you're in any religious site. Same rules apply for the mosques as well. But other than that, that's it. It should be a comfortable visit.
When I went to Istanbul, I was not unfortunate, but I was with my parents and underage. So I really didn't fully get to experience the nightlife that you touched on earlier. But I have heard that it is a really, really good time. And I know that you mentioned there are areas in the city that are better for nightlife. So what are those regions in the city if people want to go and have a big night in Istanbul?
If you are, like hopping from one club to another one, Taksim area is a very nice place, and there are lots of dozens and dozens of bars, clubs, nightlife, discos in there, and they are right next to each other. and you can just simply just get into one, and then have a couple of drinks, dance, and when the music changes, just get right next door and enter another one and have a great night out. But if you are planning to, for example, let's say you're gonna go to a beautiful place and spend the whole night in there, and there are some very famous and beautiful clubs along the Bosphorus. And these are a little, more upscale, and they can be expensive. But like I said, they will be beautiful place to spend the night, and with some nice music, you can spend a good time with your friends. So yes, you can do also some. There are some tours, right? What they were called. I can't remember the tour's name, but
pub crawls kind of thing.
Pub crawls, yes.
Yeah.
They are doing it in Istanbul, and a couple of companies doing it. That can be a wonderful idea. And those pub crawls are usually visiting the Taksim area.
Okay, so that's the area that the pub crawls go to, is Taksim area. So
yes,
definitely. I've done a few of them in my time, so they are definitely a good time.
Yes, that's right.
And of course, we can't have a podcast where we don't talk about the Grand Bazaar. You mentioned it earlier, but it's one of the largest and oldest undercover markets in the world. What can people buy there?
Grand Bazaar is an interesting place. Really, it just turned into a kind of a shopping place recently, where you just see exactly same items for sale in every single shop that you just visit. And if you don't know what you're doing in Grand Bazaar, it can be a very big disappointment for you. I've heard a lot of comments before saying that, well, that's not what I exactly had in my mind, right? It's all about those lamps, colorful tiles and magnets, cheap, let's say, souvenirs, cheap gifts. This is exactly what you'll see in Grand Bazaar if you just go in there without a preparation. If you just go in there, just simply walk through the streets, that's exactly what you will see. And you're like, holy, wow, this is exactly every single shop. Thousands of shops are selling some very cheap products in there. But the truth about the Grand Bazaar, you really, if you know what you are buying, let's say carpets, let's say some good quality Turkish handmade tiles, or some leather, or maybe some jewelry, right? Maybe some a wonderful handmade, handcrafted jewelry. You need to do your research in there. You just simply can't go in there and randomly visit a shop and buy some stuff. That's not how it works, because unfortunately, as it is one of the most popular touristy, shopping malls, let's say, shopping areas in the world, most of the places looking quite similar. So just a very basic search on Google, online, finding some resources about it, and knowing what you're buying, knowing why you're going in there. And doing this research on Google is going to give you some wonderful ideas, and that's what you should in there. But of course, if you are not planning to buy anything, simply just straight going into the Grand Bazaar, you will spend 20 minutes in there, and you're like, okay, I think I've seen everything, because everything just looks like whatever is for sale in this place looks like, pretty similar. So that's usually people's experience in Grand Bazaar.
That is a very honest and good account of the Grand Bazaar. I appreciate that a lot.
Still, as the answer of your question should be, there are still wonderful and some world famous and great and honest, family-run businesses in Grand Bazaar, where you can buy some wonderful quality leather, jewelry, and some handmade tiles and carpets as well. So a lot of celebrities, a lot of very important people, they still shop in Grand Bazaar, but they know where to go. Let's say, in Grand Bazaar, there are 30, 40, 50 places selling carpets, but, we are talking about 2 or 3 of them will be really a great place to buy it.
So just make sure people do their research and also have fun haggling. That's always a good time
Oh, yes,
in
that's
markets
right.
as well.
That's true.
Are there any festivals in Istanbul during the low season?
Well, the low season, if we include the beginning of April as low season, and I think it's almost the end of the low season and starting of the high season, but still the early weeks of winter. Sorry, April is the low season. So we have the Tulip Festival. It's a wonderful, wonderful festival. The tulips are all around the city, millions of tulips, and it is just by itself a reason to visit Istanbul during the low season, the early weeks of April. And the weather is great, and it will definitely make your visit in Istanbul a great one, the Tulip Festival that you can see all around. But other than that, during the winter times, I just can't remember any other festivals, to be honest.
So when exactly is the low season in Istanbul?
So it's definitely December, January, and February. We can include March as well, and except the Christmas time during the December. Christmas is still quite busy, so we can say those three and a half months period of time is the low season in Istanbul.
And why do you think it's a good time to visit during the low season?
It's of course, there are reasons, but the reason everyone knows is the prices of the hotels and the flights and everything. That's the common rule. But other than that, in Istanbul, the most important tourist sites are incredibly crowded during the summer months. And not only waiting on the line to get into the museums is just crazy long. And I always feel like even after you just get into those museums, let's say Hagia Sophia, those crowds are just killing the experience. And, all those noises and just trying to get around the people, it's really not the best way to understand and feel and appreciate those wonderful sites, Hagia Sophia, the Blue Mosque, or the Topkapı Palace, let's say. So visiting in winter is going to give you a different feeling when you visit those places. I mean, if you don't believe me, well, you can just try yourself, visit there during the crowded summer months and compare it with your experience in winter months. It will be more peaceful, and you will love visiting the museums during the low season. Other than that, we can say it's the fish. Maybe Turkish cuisine is quite famous of its kebabs, but fish sometimes, and the seafood, of course. It's not as people do not talk about fish and seafood as much as they talk about kebabs. But it's when it is winter, fish is pretty delicious, and it's available everywhere, and it's very reasonably priced. So it can be when people just go and visit Istanbul during the low season. Of course, they will try some kebabs, but fish will be at its best time to try during this low season.
Well, that is the perfect teaser for the next episode that we will release on Thursday, all about food in Istanbul. I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Thanks so much for today, Korhan.
Oh, my pleasure. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you to Korhan for that raw insight into Istanbul. Join us again on Thursday, where Korhan is back to discuss the food. Turkey is known for its magnificent food, which has been exported across the entire world. But there are still some dishes that you have to go to the source to try. If you want to get in touch to learn more about destinations around the world, message us on our Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Low Season Traveller, or visit our website www.lowseasontraveller.com. More now than ever, travel is better without the crowds.